Congratulations, you have been selected to receive the Resident Presidential Scholarship from Utah State University. The value of this scholarship is approximately $32,000. This scholarship is available for 4 years or 8 semesters.
That was Tyler Robinson reading a college scholarship letter to his mom a few years ago. Now, he's facing an aggravated murder charge in the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. So what happened and what is going on in Robinson's mind? I take a look. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Tyler Robinson is now infamous. He is a 22-year-old man who, if convicted, will go down in the history books as an assassin, someone who carried a rifle to a college campus and murdered in cold blood a rising political star of the Republican Party. We're going to get into what could have motivated Robinson, what could be going on up here very shortly. It's really hard for most of us to understand. This murder was recorded on camera and horrified the crowd of thousands at Utah Valley University in Orem and left Charlie Kirk's wife, a widow, and his 2 children without a father. Kirk bled out within minutes, and a 33-hour manhunt ensued. I spoke with retired FBI agent Ed Jacobson about how this investigation unfolded.
You know, something like this that occurs, you know, an event that occurs like this, it's all hands on deck. State, local, federal authorities, it's any resource they've got at their disposal they're going to throw at an investigation like this quickly.
What was going on behind the scenes, do you think? We obviously know they were going through the videos, the surveillance footage, trying to track this kid down, trying to track his movements. What else was going on? You know, do you think the BAU was brought into this? What do you think happened?
Everything. Like I said, when it's all hands on deck, it is exactly that. It's the full resources of not just the FBI, I'm sure the ATF and any of the federal agencies out there all jump in as much as they can to provide the resources necessary for this. And it's, you go out and you gather everything you can. You interview as many witnesses as possible that might have seen something. You gather video from everything within the vicinity of that to try to track movement. You just throw the net and grab as much as you can, and then of course all of that information's got to be reviewed. So you've got teams gathering, teams reviewing, and trying to put together the picture as fast as possible to lead you to a suspect. You know, understand at this point, you're just trying to find a suspect. You're not digging deep into ideologies or anything else like that. You're just trying to reach probable cause to be able to make an arrest. Now, what's hard to believe is now the investigation truly begins. This is actually just the tip of the iceberg getting to the arrest. Now is when you've got to start really digging into every bit of evidence out there once you've made that arrest. But it's a simple matter, I can't even say it's simple, but it's a matter of getting to that probable cause of identifying the suspect, having enough evidence to tie him to the crime and get him into custody.
Talk to me about what is going to happen now in the investigation. Obviously, they're going to want to know what was going on up here. And they're going to look at his electronics. They're going to talk. They've already talked to the roommate. You talked about ideology. I mean, the etchings on the shell casings alone and on the bullets, it's kind of leaving me thinking what was going on here, because he's saying fascist in one of them, talking about if you can read this, you're gay, LMAO. I mean, it seems like there's some competing things going on here. I'm not really sure where he's coming from.
And you have to understand, from the investigative standpoint, they're going to turn over every rock they can and you're going to get what you can. But at the end, that doesn't really matter for what the investigators are concerned with, because the investigators are concerned with proving beyond a reasonable doubt he committed this crime. a lot of times it's you go back to the Koberger where everybody wants to know motive. We would all like to know motive, but is it necessary to spend something you may never get? You may never know the full details of what's going on in his mind. And at the end of the day, to do our jobs, we don't need to know that. We just need to be able to put forth enough evidence to get a conviction of the crime that he's accused of.
And that work is already well underway, and it sounds like they've already got a small mountain of evidence in the form of ballistics, palm print, if that was even readable, a whole lion's share of things that they've got going on.
Right. And then, so now what you're doing is you're getting into the deeper dive, because you have obviously the crime everybody witnessed, which was a homicide, and everybody witnessed. Now you've got other codes that take into account that may come out from further evidence as they further dive. But everything that possibly can be obtained is going to be obtained, because they're going to put, like I said, the full force of all of those agencies down there collecting that. That's what you're saying. You're going into the deep dive on electronics. You're going into the deep dive on this guy's history, on his patterns, on his movements, on everything, because that all goes to, the fact of how long did he plan this and how much did he put into it, which all gets into what you've got to prove in court.
What's going to become very important as this investigation moves forward is maybe what Tyler Robinson was doing online, and what will be important if prosecutors do indeed pursue the death penalty are aggravating factors. We've already heard about some of that from the governor.
So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices bulges, capital O-W-O, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow, and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO."
So right there, you're hearing about major premeditation. We know that Tyler Robinson was a good student when he was younger. His mom boasted about his 4.0 GPA in high school and his 34 out of 36 on the ACT. He had a college scholarship, but only went to Utah State University for 1 semester in the fall of 2021 before taking a leave of absence. Federal privacy laws prevent the university from saying what happened. So to try to dig into this a little more, I brought in an expert. Dr. Daniel Bober has been with me many times before. He's a forensic psychiatrist who deals a lot with young people. So Dr. Bober, your reaction to this Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old who was once a straight A student, 4.0 student. I guess his mom was bragging about him on Facebook when he was younger, being charged with the aggravated murder of Charlie Kirk.
We've seen this before. There are a lot of missing pieces. There are things we don't know. But, when you look at a situation like this, you realize that the temperature is very hot in this country. There's a lot of extremism, a lot of tribalism, identity politics. But let's be honest, all of that we're exposed to all the time, most people do not become violent. Most people don't try to shoot someone with a rifle. So there obviously are some unique characteristics about this individual that put them at risk to do that. And, there are a lot of different models that look at this. If we look at this through a psychiatric lens, we look at what are some of the predisposing factors, were there narcissistic or antisocial traits? Was there a family history of mental illness, a lack of social supports? Then we look at what are the precipitating factors, right? political radicalization, acute stressors? Was there job loss? Was there financial strain? Was there academic problems? Was he rejected interpersonally in some sort of relationship? And perpetuating factors like the social media echo chamber, feeling isolated, cognitive rigidity or lack of problem-solving skills. And there were some protective factors, right? He had what we believe is a supportive family. Did he have access to mental health services? And for that matter, was there a history of mental illness? And of course, we know this tipster that came by his own family to let authorities know that he was the one that was alleged to have committed this crime. So obviously, that didn't help prevent the crime because it occurred after the fact, but it obviously assisted in his capture.
One of the things that has really piqued my interest, I'm trying to get a whole picture here, and we're still so early on in all of this. And even if this kid explained why he did what he did, if he in fact is the guy, and it looks like he's the guy, and he's convicted, it's not going to ever make any sense to us at all. Will make zero sense to us, to you and me. But what's interesting to me is that he had this big time scholarship to Utah State University. He was telling his parents about it. He goes there in the fall of 2021. He's a pre-engineering student, and the school told me in the fall of 2021, he takes a leave of absence. They can't tell me why because of FERPA, but he leaves and he never goes back.
There's the missing piece, right? Something happened there.
Something happened
that we don't know. Was he using substances? Was he rejected in some sort of romantic relationship? We don't know. But the most interesting thing about this case and these cases in general is, where does someone make the leap from adopting this political ideology and radicalization to violence, right? Because anger is the beginning. Violence doesn't start with anger. It starts where grievance meets justification. And to me, that is the most interesting thing about this, which is you have someone who was radicalized, who was probably looking at social media, was involved in this echo chamber where all these ideas were reinforced. But to make that leap from just adopting an ideology to actually committing such a horrific, violent act, to me, that's the most interesting part.
It really is. And this is giving me kind of flashbacks, if you will, to Luigi Mangione. It almost has some copycat aspects to it. We've got somebody, carrying out a homicide, planning it. We've got the etchings on the shell casings on the bullets. We have, an attempt to disguise, the outfit and everything, the hat. He shows up in one set of clothes, leaves in another. So there's stuff going on here. I mean, there's some serious premeditation going on here.
Sure. There's planning, organization, attempts to conceal the crime. He flees, obviously. So this is not something that he woke up one morning and decided to do. This is something he was thinking about and planning for quite some time.
And one thing that's incredibly disturbing, you talked about the radicalization here and being in these echo chambers. We know that this guy was on Discord. We've heard about that already, that he's talking about this on Discord. His roommate shows the cops some messages from that. And so these chat rooms or whatever can be crazy. I mean, I'm calling it a chat room. That's what it is, basically. But that's, Discord can be a crazy place. That can be a really bad place, depending on what's going on up here with you. And then we've got the video game aspect of this. And then we just don't know what he was reading. I think we'll learn more about that. But we know with these shell casings, they were apparently etched with anti-fascist sayings. One of them says, "Hey, fascist catch." Another is, "Oh, Bella ciao, Bella ciao, Bella ciao, ciao, ciao." I mean, that's apparently some type of anti-fascist rallying cry. "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO," laughing my A off. All this crazy stuff. I'm just flabbergasted by this. So what does that say to you, Dr. Bober, about what is going on with somebody? I mean, this seems kind of like, and he took off and apparently told his father when confronted, I'd rather kill myself than turn myself in. So what does all of this say to you, other than we've got somebody who is probably pretty disturbed?
In my clinical experience, the people that spread the most hate are often the ones that love themselves the least. This was probably someone, again, who was suffering, maybe suffering in silence, going through some kind of a personal crisis. Again, a relationship breakup, something that happened that we didn't know about, shame, humiliation, that put him over the edge. This wasn't simply just a case of him going on social media and adopting some extremist ideology. There had to be personal factors. Again, and I've said this many times, it's never just one thing. We know the majority of legal gun owners are not violent. We know that the majority of people who watch, different channels that are extreme or polarized in nature don't commit violent acts. It's never just one thing. It's a multitude of factors that play out into the perfect storm.
Another thing that we've got going on here, it seems that his family may be pretty conservative. He was raised in the LDS Church, not a surprise, in Utah. Dad apparently is a Republican, a Trump supporter, and now we have this kid potentially going the other way. And I say potentially because there's also this speculation that there's speculation online that he may have been what's called a groper, which is a far right person. But everything we're reading here in the affidavit seems to point the other way. So we don't really know. I don't know.
And there's one other possibility. Maybe all of this is a red herring. Maybe all of this is a distractor. This political ideology, this radicalism. Maybe it's something very simple. Again, the loss of a job, some kind of personal rejection, and he was looking for some kind of toxic outlet for his feelings, and he adopted this ideology to feel empowered in some way. But maybe we're looking in the wrong place because we just don't know enough yet.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like his family is telling law enforcement that he had talked about Charlie Kirk and how much he didn't like him because he felt that Charlie Kirk spewed hate. But then we've got all this other stuff online talking about how he possibly didn't like Charlie Kirk enough because he didn't think Charlie Kirk was conservative enough. But you think possibly, is it possible he just wants to kill somebody and he comes up with this as a way to do it?
Sure, this could just be the vehicle. This could just be an opportunity for him. We all have people in different political positions that maybe we don't agree with their viewpoints, but we're not going out trying to kill them. So there are clearly individual factors here at work that we don't know about. And in the days and the weeks that come, we're going to find out a lot more about this individual. We're going to find out, hopefully, what motivated him to do this. And there may indeed be a history of mental illness, although I say this all the time. The people with mental illness are more likely to be the victims of violence and not the perpetrators. But there are certainly certain types of mental illness with certain types of symptoms that can cause people to commit acts of violence.
I feel like this leave of absence from the school where you were heading to college, you had the scholarship. I feel like that's going to tell us a lot if we can ever get any information about that, because that just doesn't comport, going from pre-engineering, straight A student, 34 on the ACTs.
Yeah, his ACTs were in the 99th percentile. Absolutely someone who was, by all accounts, brilliant, for sure.
Yes, his mom called him a genius, and there's nothing wrong with this. Now he's at technical college, in an electrician program, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it just seems like we've got a major difference in where he was and where he is.
Why this social drift? Something doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And a man is dead, and 2 children are without their father, and a wife is without her husband. And it's sickening. Dr. Daniel Bober, thank you for your time, as always.
Thank you, Anjanette.
And we'll continue to look into this and try to figure out what on earth happened. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.